I thought it was a photo. If you've ever gotten that comment before, you should be proud of the hard work and attention to detail you put into your painting. Painting photorealistically with watercolor is possible, but it presents some challenges. For this video, I'll show you how I painted this realistic cat from a photo, and I'll share some of my tricks for painting something that will make your viewers say, "Is that really a painting?" If you'd like to try this painting for yourself, you can download my reference photo and sketch using the link in the description. As always with watercolor, you need to plan ahead for the areas of lightest value in the painting. I begin by using masking fluid to paint on the whiskers. I'll remove the liquid latex and refine those bright white areas later in the process. If you'd like to learn more about masking fluid, you can check out my video that's dedicated just to that. It took me about 6 or 7 minutes to carefully paint in all of the whiskers. I did not do some of the finer lines because I'll actually go back in with gouache for the tinier whiskers and individual hairs. With the white of the whiskers safely protected beneath the masking fluid, I can freely paint over those areas. I wet my paint with my spray bottle, and I decide to paint the background first. There is a blurry bit of brightly lit fur along the back of the cat's neck in my reference photo. My intention is to create a soft furry edge there simply by wetting the paper, painting wet into wet, and painting the dark background almost up to the edge of the wet paper along the neck. The background color bleeds a little into the neck and does the job for me of making the neck look fuzzy and soft. This technique takes a lot of practice. I'm definitely still not perfect at it. But if you paint a lot of animals, I do think it's a necessary skill to learn. My background colors are a combination of Sap Green, Moonglow, Lamp Black, and touches of Ultramarine. Next, I paint the background on the other side of the cat's head, generously wetting the paper first with clean water. There will be just a couple of intentional hard edges along the nose, so I paint around those. I paint the blurry ear using watered down indigo, then start dropping in background color, working quickly while the paper is still wet. I'm just grabbing lots of different colors: Sap Green, Viridian, Phthalo Blue, Moonglow, Burnt Umber, Indigo, and Black. The colors need to be dark enough to provide a strong contrast with the cat's white mouth and neck, and I need to keep in mind that they will dry lighter. I dab along the edge of the neck to create a fuzzy texture. Blurry backgrounds are one of my favorite things to paint in watercolor. You can clearly see at this point how the whiskers remain protected by the masking fluid. I remove the masking fluid in the background area and tighten up the whiskers just using my green background color. Another method I use for blurry whiskers is to take clean water on a round brush and just paint a whisker with the water, then lift out the paint from that wet shape using paper towel. For the eyes, I use watered down Viridian and yellow ochre. The shadow around the eye will eventually be the darkest value in the painting. I begin to layer on some shadows and stripes above the eyes. The forehead is a very cool, light gray, and the fur inside the ear is also a cool gray. I add a pop of burnt sienna around the rim of the ear. There are some areas in the cat's face that are a warmer, light brown tone, so I'm beginning to block those areas in. I add another wash of very light blue to the ears. For most of this painting, I used my silver black velvet size 2 round brush. I add burnt umber below the ear, painting around some small fur highlights. I then decide to finish the eye. This is just a process of carefully painting the black pupil, the eyelids, and the dark fur around the eye. I use really short, quick, light brush strokes, kind of a scrubbing motion even, with the tip of my brush to create the effect of fur, sometimes splaying the bristles. My colors here are lamp black, burnt umber, and burnt sienna. The next step involves darkening my values all over. I use Moonglow for my base layer, painting on a nice wet wash all the way around the eye. I charge some yellow ochre into this wash, allowing the two colors to bleed together and intensify the warm values with burnt sienna. Using that same technique of laying down two very wet colors side by side, I paint a watered down phthalo blue on the chin. The neck is painted really quickly with a rich black and Moonglow combination. I'm careful to blend my edges. I pull some Moonglow wet on dry into the white neck and block in the black stripes on the side of the face. To make sure it all looks connected, I either blend edges with clean water or I push around the color with the splayed bristles of my brush so that the edges are transformed into soft fur textures. I drop in splotches of burnt umber. This part of the process is both exciting and scary. I paint the neck stripes wet into wet so the paint will soften. It's really important to paint your base layers wet into wet. This helps you establish your colors and values while keeping everything soft and blended. As that begins to dry, I go in with more details using the fine tip of my round brush. Painting realistically is a delicate dance between blocking in large areas quickly and then adding fine details. I love to get lost in the process, and I really enjoy bringing a blank piece of paper to life just with colors and brush strokes. I add just another layer of blue to the chin. The fur on the nose is created with quick, short brush strokes using the splayed bristles of my size 2 round brush. The nose is really simple. I start with a black outline and the nostril, and then I let that dry for a while. I refine the ear, adding more fur texture and deeper values. The key to painting realistically is to paint in layers. This takes patience for sure. I use Moonglow to paint a light shadow where the mouth curves around. Moonglow is such a versatile color. To learn more about this beautiful pigment, you can check out my video on using Moonglow to paint horses. In order to soften the edge along the back of the neck, I wet the dry paint with my brush and then gently scrub it out with a paper towel. I'm continuing to just add more details, adding lots of little fur textures with my round brush, and I'm intensifying the color in the eye, and paint in the pink nose using Quinacridone Rose and a little bit of burnt sienna. I also paint in the little spots of dark fur near the whiskers. I can really get into the finest surface details now. I'm painting very slowly, always glancing at my reference photo to check my values. Painting hyper-realistically requires a large block of time. I remove the last bits of my masking fluid make sure your paint is completely dry before doing this. I'm now refining the whiskers, making them just a little skinnier, not so stark white. Because I'm not a purist about such things, I'm okay with using white gel pens and white gouache for whiskers too. For this painting, I actually did start with some of the gel pens, but they didn't take well to this surface. So I switched to the white gouache, and that worked great for adding the very fine whiskers and a few more wisps of white fur along the neck, along the ridge of the nose and above the eyes. Altogether, this 7 by 10 inch painting took about 2 hours. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. I'll be posting new videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And be sure to tell your friends who are interested in watercolor about my brand new channel, and follow me on Instagram. I'd love to see you there. Thank you so much for watching.